morning, Dubai. Welcome back to the Lovin Dubai show, where we go through the top trending stories that everyone across the country and the region is talking about. Our top story for you today: breaking news: the Iranian president has passed away. The UAE has offered its full support.
As well, Equity, Mashriq and on-passive stations resume operations.
Apparently, over 1,300 firms have been penalised for Emiratization violations.
As well, there's a Dubai rider who did not get a tip. He only got, like, for 23 orders, he got only one tip, which is very sad.
Looks like Dubai is not tipping. Also, later on the show, we're talking about Joe Coy is coming to Abu Dhabi. We're super excited for this one.
And later on the show, we have tips to battle post-graduation depression with Dr. BC Linian, of course, and
it is 225 days since the genocide began in Gaza on October 7th. The current death toll stands at 35,386. The number of injured people is 79,366, while more than 1.9 million people have been displaced from their homes.
As well, the lowest temperature recorded in the UAE was 20 degrees, and that was in Iraq. 43 degrees was the highest recorded in the UAE on Sunday. Expect highs of 36 degrees in Dubai today.
We're going to break into our top story. Breaking news: the Iranian president has passed away. The UAE has offered its full support. The UAE was following media reports of the tragic accident of the helicopter which carried the Honourable Dr. Ibrahim Raisi, who is President of Iran, His Excellency Hossein Amir Abdollahian, who is Minister of Foreign Affairs, and a number of officials.
As well, in a statement, Saif Mohammed Al-Zabi, UAE ambassador to the Islamic Republic of Iran, expressed his sincere wishes of success to the search and rescue, of course, but sadly we've got the recent news that he has passed away.
Reuters have reported that the Iranian president and his foreign ministers were all killed in a helicopter crash in the mountainous terrain amid icy weather. This was reported by an Iranian official on Monday after search teams located the wreckage in the East Azerbaijani province. This is breaking news. It's a developing story. It has just been reported that the president and all people involved in the aircraft have passed away. Our thoughts and prayers and condolences are with everyone involved. And of course, we'll deliver more information on the story as we can get it to you.
As well, it has been announced that, maybe the vice president is there to take on the lead after the president's passing away. And as well, Al-Zabi stressed that, the embassy has received back then instructions and directives from the wise leadership of the UAE to assist Iran and be there immediately available to support in every possible way. Of course, back then when the search and rescue operations were happening, but sadly, as we have just announced, he has passed away.
We're going to jump into our next story. It's 8:34 on Monday morning. We hope you're having a safe journey to work. Speaking of journeys to work, we're talking all about the metro updates. Big news over the weekend.
So Equity, Mashriq and on-passive metro stations are back up and running. The Dubai Roads and Transport Authority, RTA, declared that Dubai metro services have resumed at on-passive Equity and Mashriq stations, stating that Sunday, May 19th, which was yesterday, the Energy metro station is anticipated to reopen next week.
This is ahead of time, by the way, so I think everyone who is taking the metro to work is going to be so happy to get that news yesterday. So via a social media post on X, the RTA affirmed that all essential maintenance and testing tasks have been finalised to guarantee the station's complete operational readiness. They ensure that all safety standards are met, ensuring the utmost secure and seamless service for the public. This was meant to be later in the month. We had initially reported via the RTA that it was going to be May 27th. We know that people's routes were affected. We know it was taking you longer to get to work. So delighted that the RTA were able to complete all of the safety checks and get you to your work faster. Well done, RTA.
100%. And as well, you know what's actually very funny? I was out with my friends and I had forgotten, because we're so used to, we're very privileged, and I'm so used to, being the metro open all the time. And I had forgotten that, it was closed due to the floods. And I remember I wanted to go back, and I'm like, oh my God, Equity is not open. It's not opening, it's not operating. And I had to call in a cab and so on. But the fact that it's on again and working and operating, as you've mentioned, that it was not supposed to be operating until the 27th. But it is, you guys. And maybe we should just be like, yay, we live in the UAE, and that's what we can all expect from the UAE, just fast. And they just come on board, and they just are there, you know. They might tell you like it's not going to open till like next week, but you never know.
You know, that's a good lesson in what's that phrase that you use? So you should never promise deadlines that you can't meet. You know, like for example, especially in the workplace, and it's
That's
like,
true.
oh, I'll have it done by the end of the day.
Yeah.
Don't under promise and over deliver. It's better to, how do you phrase it? It's better to under promise and over deliver, which the RTA did, and we thank them for it.
That's true.
Now, if you do have questions, the RTA is very hot on X. So if you're asking, okay, so which buses are going to be running? For example, you got to Equity yesterday and you wanted to know, was there another route available? Go on and use social media for what it's for, which is communication, and you'll get responses for them. They'll also probably direct you to the RTA Journey Planner, which is available on an app where you can check different times and different bus routes that are available. And don't hesitate to contact X on Twitter, the RTA on Twitter, for information. If you're not sure if, for example, you're part of the Energy, if you use Energy to get to work and that has an open jet, just check with them.
100%. And the best thing is that they are always updating us, you know, step by step. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to know, like, who handles their social media page?
Busy people at the RTA.
Perfect for you.
No. Okay, let's talk about Emiratization.
So over 1,300 firms have been penalized for Emiratization violations. Now, since mid-2022, a total number of 1,379 private establishments have been identified for breaching Emiratization regulations. Now, alongside the Ministry of Human Resources and Emiratization, MOHRE uncovered 2,170 instances of false Emiratization claims during this period.
2,170 instances of false claims.
That's bold.
That is so bold. Legal actions have been initiated against the implicated companies, including fines ranging from 20,000 to 100,000 dirham. Some of these companies have been referred to the public prosecution depending on the violation. Additionally, the non-compliant firms are also demoted to the lowest category within MOHRE's private sector classification system. It's not worth it.
100%. And the ministry further reports that over 20,000 establishments have been found to adhere to Emiratization policies, resulting in the current count of Emirati employees in the private sector surpassing 97,000.
So, of course, the majority is following the route as they should, but there's that small subset of companies not even not doing it, but putting in false claims. But I think with this announcement, it shows that there is regulation to make sure that companies are properly adhering to it. And if you don't, the fines are not worth it for any company, starting from 20,000 up to 100,000.
Can I just say the courage that they have to not follow the rules? Yeah. I mean, like, why are you so confident? Like you're gonna get caught. They're gonna find out. You know, the UAE is the UAE. You know, the UAE, just like how it never really fails its precedents with them opening the metro and the floods and getting back on track like that, right? They're gonna just catch you. Just like stop.
Who would actually like? I can't even tell a white lie. I don't think. Like I really can't. I really struggle with dishonesty. And but that's like on a personal level. But on a company level, in a country like the UAE where rules are so clear, I couldn't sleep with myself. I couldn't sleep at night if I was trying to put in a false claim. So pretending to the UAE that I have an employee, an Emirati employee in my workforce, and that wasn't true. Because then, for example, that has to come from somewhere. And it's probably a big company. So the boss has to send to this person, and everyone is in on the lie. How is there 2,000 companies doing? Is that what's happening?
I think.
Is that a really basic explanation? I don't know.
I think that's what's happening. And a lot of them are putting on false claims, like on paper or maybe like as a show. I don't know, maybe they get them as interns and then they go like, okay, fine, you know, we don't want you anymore. And they go like, oh yeah, this is Emiratization, right? And the thing is, I think that Emiratization is there for a reason. And people are, I would say, overlooking the reason because like as Emiratis, they are taken into, there's a stigma or a stereotype that they cannot do the work. Or maybe that they're privileged and that they should not do the work. And I think the UAE as a whole is trying to break that stigma and that's how it is, right? So if we are not there to help to break that stigma, then what's the point? Just like cooperate right?
Yeah,
That's
100%.
fine.
Really good point.
Yeah.
Speaking of cooperation, we'd love your cooperation on the next one because Dubai does not tip, apparently. This is a non-scientific evaluation, by the way. So, non-scientific, i.e., we didn't do a proper survey, but one person was ordering through an app, and I want to check what this is to see how much more information we can get from it. When she noticed her assigned rider had only gotten one tip out of 23 orders in the span of 48 hours. One tip in 48 hours.
Now, she took to her Instagram stories to raise awareness over the tipping trends in Dubai. She said the trend of not tipping delivery workers is troubling, as these individuals often rely on tips to supplement their low base wages.
She continued, many delivery drivers face long hours, harsh weather, and also the pressure of speedy deliveries, yet they struggle to make ends meet without adequate tips. The lack of recognition for their hard work and essential service is disheartening and underscores a broader issue of undervaluing frontline workers.
Now, most delivery service applications give users the option to tip a standard or custom amount to make the process smoother. Specifically for online transactions, this is your PSA to use this feature.
Please, no one's ever going to say they don't tip.
That's true.
So, like,
that's true.
Hesham, do you tip? It depends on the situation.
Okay, I like the honesty. I like the honesty.
Do you tip
really
delivery drivers? Yeah, it's paid by card.
Yeah.
Well, I usually do it on the app prior to the order even
that is true.
arriving.
Yeah.
But for someone to be able to see that only one rider, he got one tip in 48 hours. I just look at the American service industry and everywhere you go, you tip. You go to the bar to get a drink and you tip. It could be a small order, but every single transaction, even if you go to buy a loaf of bread at the bakery, they're like, would you like to add service? And I'm like, no, I don't want to add service. Like, it literally, I said this one, you put it in like an extra $1. It's a lot of money. But that's because the wages are, the reason there's such an emphasis on tipping is because the wages in the service industry are distinctly low. And it's not really a conversation that we've had, 100%. But the reality is Dubai delivery drivers are probably on the low end of the wage spectrum in the country. So there probably should be a more relevant conversation as to we actually need to make a concerted effort to make sure that we are doing the tipping. We 100%. Say we are, and everyone says they are, but that shows that maybe we're not doing it as much as we say we are, so maybe we need to do more.
I mean, honestly, like, that capture is heartbreaking, you know what I mean? Because, like, as she said, the drivers, we get angry at them, like, oh, where's my food, where's this, where's that? And they are driving between cars and risking their lives to get your food to you in a perfect state, as hot as possible, on like in a right time manner, and so on. But if we are not tipping them, then it's heartbreaking. And as well, I feel like, you know, in a way that we tend to like not kind of like feel for them. You know what I mean? It's very hard to feel for someone if you are not in their situation. You know, and if you are a driver and like on a motorcycle driving between cars and trying to have a delivery done as soon as possible because you don't want to lose your job and you have a minimum wage of like pay, I think a tip would be like nice and would make your day better. And maybe like towards like the end, if he had maybe I don't know, got more than one, he would have been like, yay, I love my job. Let me continue doing it.
I'm going to take a bit of a more hard, less empathetic approach to it. Like the job isn't easy, especially in the summer. So I love when people put water bottles outside their homes. I think it's the best thing, and I love when we have that conversation that encourages people to do it. But I don't think the tip should be considered like a nice thing. I think the reality is if wages are low, they're in the service industry, it should be a given. So like, it's not like we're not doing it to make his day better. We're acknowledging that his wage is lower and he probably has a family, or she, you know. So it's not just like, it's it's not as a gesture of a nicety. It's actually more of this should be an essential because, yes, they have a hard job, but also because their wages are low, and we should acknowledge that.
I also think, honestly, from like the point of like, if you are human, right? And I'm taking it from a humanity point of view. You know, if you are human and you would recognize the efforts that the person is actually putting to get your food reached to you in a good state, so you can enjoy your meal, you know, that delivery driver is probably going back for another delivery driver, for another delivery, sorry. So, I don't know, I feel like as a human, like, I don't know, how would you feel?
But I just think that if you're working in a restaurant, you can go up to a table and you can turn it on and you can say, hey guys, like, you could have a conversation and you can really ramp up the service, and then there might even be a debate at the table, like give them even more, you know. But when you're a delivery driver, he or she could say to himself every single morning, I'm going to have a smile on my face. But there isn't actually a lot that you can do, because the distances to get to places, it's all very set. And we have comments from some of the biggest delivery companies already, and they have said they don't put the time pressure on it, although we talk about it. There actually isn't the time pressure on the drivers. So how they can really up their service, they actually can't. You know, you can say good afternoon and you can hand it over, but there isn't really a lot that they can do on the service side. So that shouldn't even, I don't think how they portray themselves at the door should be a marker of the tip.
That is true.
Or even the time frame, because the time frame isn't really in there. They can't change that. They can't fix the restaurant. They can't alter the traffic. They can't alter the weather. The time is going to be the time. You don't want them rushing, and you don't obviously want anyone dilly-dallying, but I don't think that's the case here. The service is the service. So regardless of how they smile at you or regardless of the gesture, I just think they just probably deserve a tip for going to work and getting it done.
For sure. And by the way, even like, let's say they had like 10 deliveries throughout their day. There must have been one delivery where like the person might be in a bad mood, or something might have happened with him, you know, at work or during the day, where like he opened the door and just like had like, I would not a smiley. You know what I mean?
That's what I mean.
So he he must feel like bad in a way. And if like you open the door and you smile and you give him a tip, maybe fine, like not cash tip. If you can't cash, there is the app, you know, you can just like, you know, I don't know, tip. Even if it's, by the way, like 1 dirham, it's just like the gesture of it, you know. We can like give like, what is the 1 dirham going to affect you in life? And it's
Hesham said he gave 2 dirhams and Cordy gave it back. Well, I would say it's got to be connected to the price of what you're paying. But actually, when you look at that and you think they only got 1 tip in 48 hours. So restaurants is different. Yeah. I do think, but even restaurants, I think it's a different conversation. But I think I think we should all make a concerted effort to tip.
It should be mandatory. You know what I mean? For all applications, if they are actually ordering.
But in the States, it's not. I think that maybe that's fair, but in the States it's not mandatory, but it's just very much ingrained in the entire culture that we tip for service. We could go on. It's 8:50. Jumping into our next story, Joe Coy is coming to the Etihad Arena, Abu Dhabi, on the 26th of May. The top stand-up comedian has risen from performing in Las Vegas coffee houses to headlining sold-out arenas worldwide. And if you love live comedy, you don't want to miss this.
Now, Lovin Abu Dhabi is of a proud media partner of the night that brings relatable comedy inspired by his vibrant family connects with as well audience everywhere, and he happens to break sales records at prestigious venues across the globe with 4 Netflix specials, a best-selling autobiography, and a #1 Billboard stand-up comedy album. It's no wonder he was named stand-up comedian of the year at the Just for Laughs Comedy Festival in Montreal.
We are big fans of Joy Coy here in Lovin Dubai and also, of course, Lovin Abu Dhabi. Don't miss it. Get your tickets now as the show is sure to sell out quickly. It's happening very, very soon. So, this weekend. It's happening this weekend. So this is your sign to run and get those tickets. We love live comedy. It's going to be a huge night. You don't want to miss it. 8:51. It means it's time to jump into our next guest. We're talking about postgraduate depression. What are the signs and how you can battle it? We're really looking forward to this conversation. Do stay tuned. Welcome back to the Lovin Dubai show. Today's guest is Dr. Bissy Lanyon from Sage Clinic. Bissy is a psychologist here to help students navigate post-graduation depression. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Very excited to jump into this conversation.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. Now, my first question is, what is post-graduation depression to a lot of people who do not really get it or understand it?
So, post-graduation depression is essentially symptoms relating to depression that is either triggered by finishing university and being a fresh graduate out in the working world, or maintained by the fact that you're a fresh graduate in the new working world, or trying to navigate the working world.
And what are some, I guess, common signs or symptoms that it's specifically postgraduate depression?
Okay, so I think the time in which the episode starts is really important. So we're talking about things were relatively okay before graduating, and then upon graduating. So this could be triggered by things such as struggling to find employment, or being unsure about what to do with your life, and being unsure about what to do with yourself following leaving that kind of like structured school setting. So some of the symptoms include symptoms that you would find in typical depression. But I guess the key is when it starts, so what it's triggered by. So some of the symptoms might be that kind of feelings of hopelessness, feelings of I can't see things getting better, I'm unsure about what to do, fatigue, loss of interest, loss of motivation, like a deep sense of apathy. And this isn't something that's temporary that lasts a couple of days. We're talking about this lasting for a number of weeks and it being difficult to shift. Yeah.
So, of course, like, you know, every graduate knows that this is a cycle of life, you know what I mean? They graduate and then they start applying for jobs and they can get rejected from like several companies. So, but what do you think, like, why does the post-graduation depression happen? Like, why, like, we know that this is a cycle, but why does it happen?
It's interesting because you say that we know that.
Yeah.
We know that because we've passed that. But when you're experiencing something like this for the first time, it can feel like you're the only one. It can feel like I've just graduated and I don't know what I'm doing. Everybody expects me to know what I'm doing. And even when you think about your journey in school, right, or your journey in university, you might be thinking, okay, once I graduate, I'm going to apply for an internship or I'm going to apply for like a postgraduate scheme and I'm going to get a job. So looking back on hindsight, we can say that we know this is a cycle of life. You apply for jobs, you get rejected. But the reality is that if you're experiencing something like this for the first time, it can feel like it's just you. Yeah, and there's no way out almost.
Well, is there a way out? Like what tips would you give to both, I guess, someone going through it, and also if you have any parents watching today, them watching their, you know, their newly graduated kids, like what would you say to parents also? How can you help your kids get through this time?
Yeah, so I'll start probably with the individual. Like you said, most of us experience this. So I think the stats are about 33% of recent graduates experience depression following graduation. So just to let you know that you're not the only one. Yeah, this is very common and it's difficult, but it is a season and it is a cycle that will pass. Applying for jobs is really hard and it can take a toll on your mental health and also your confidence, getting those constant rejections. So you want to hold in mind that it's not personal, that these rejections aren't personal. It might mean that you're not the right fit for the company at this time. Yeah, so you want to be kind to yourself. Yeah, I think for parents and caregivers and also older siblings as well, I think it's really important that we watch what we say. Sometimes we think that we're being encouraging and sometimes we think that we are offering words to motivate our young people, but actually it can be quite pressurizing. And sometimes we make comments that compares them with other people, with their peers. They know what their peers are doing. They know what other people are doing. And now with social media, you can see what other people are doing. So they don't need to be reminded of that. So it's thinking about the comment that you're making. Is it useful? Is it actually necessary right now? Yeah, for the young person. If you can offer practical help to your young person, such as looking over their CVs, going through interview practice with them, helping them create an attractive LinkedIn profile, offer practical support in those ways. I think that that's really helpful and can be beneficial to young people.
I just want to say I always struggle with what to say and what not to say, but I think that's a really valuable piece of information. Just offer practical help rather than comments that may not be as helpful as you deem them to be. Yeah,
100%. And funny thing, because today morning as I was heading to the office, I was having a discussion with my mom, and I was telling her, Mom, about the guest, which is you, on the show, and I was telling her, she was like, how come? What do you mean? Depression post-graduation? I'm like, Mom, because our generation has it harder than your generation. So how do you think it's like different for both generations? Because I think honestly for the past generation, they didn't have as much responsibilities as we do right now.
I think it depends. I think it depends. And I think it also depends when you graduate. So some people graduate during a period of recession. So I remember when I went to university, some of my friends, this was 2008, they were graduating during a period of recession. So, and when I graduated, fortunately, it wasn't a period of recession. So there are different factors that contribute to struggling to find a job. I think it's difficult to kind of make direct comparisons between generations because different things are happening in different generations and also culturally as well. I think that what's important to bear in mind is that it is common and it does happen. I think sometimes our parents are like, but you've graduated, you should be happy, you should be excited, the world's your oyster. But for someone who has been in a system where they've been kind of told what to do, so this is when you go to class, this is your homework, this is your assignment, and now you've been thrust into the world of you need to make your own decisions, that can be very, very scary. And now we know that the working environment is very, very competitive. Yeah, and because it's so global, you're not just competing with your peers next door, you're competing with almost an international and global market, which can be very anxiety provoking for some young people, and it can make them feel like a really small fish in a big pond.
It's so interesting you said the world is your oyster. I just feel like oysters don't always go down well.
Yeah.
And leading on from what you said is that although we shouldn't compare generations, and I think you said at the beginning maybe 33% of people have experienced it.
Yeah.
However, we can't make comparisons, but do you think or do you know if it's more common now, post-graduation depression, than previous generations? Like, are there any stats on it?
I don't have any stats to hand right now, but what I would say from personal experience and from people that I've worked with is that people are speaking more about it now. So whereas before it might have been internalized and people might have like got on with it, now people are actually expressing and sharing how difficult they're finding it, which I think is really powerful because it normalizes that you're not the only one. And I know I keep saying that, but it's just to normalize just how common this is, because when you feel like you are the only one, it can make the symptoms of depression feel worse. Yeah, and it can make the situation feel more hopeless.
Interesting.
So the transition from, like, as you mentioned, from school, university, where you're being told all the time like what to do, to go to class, to do this and that, to figuring it out all on your own. The transition is very hard with social media as well. So how can people adapt to that change?
The change of now, I guess, being a bit more independent. Oh, that's a tricky one. I think for young people, it's really important to think about what's important to you. Yeah, because when you are unsure of what your values are, when you're unsure of what's important to you, it's easier to be influenced and it's easier to be directed by other people. So thinking about what's important to you. If it's that actually after you graduate, you're not really interested in getting a job. Maybe you want to further your studies, or maybe you want to do some more personal development. Then if that's what's important to you in that time, it's about pursuing those things as opposed to, I need to do this just because somebody else is doing it or somebody else has said it.
Well, we've touched briefly on the beast that is social media, and then the comparisons that we might draw with our, fellow graduates. But are there some tips that we can share to help us stop comparing ourselves with other people on social media? So are other people who are going through a similar life, but yet, I've started my company, or I've just got a job, and like, how can we stop that comparison?
Yes, okay. The first thing to bear in mind is that, and I'm sure we've all heard this, not everything you see on social media is real. Yeah, we've all heard the saying that it's curated feed, which is true. Yeah, so you're comparing your step 1 with somebody else's step 20. And also you don't know the person's background and the context in which they've built their so-called success. You don't know that. So it's really unfair. And in some ways, you're being unkind to yourself by comparing yourself with someone, because we're all different. One thing to bear in mind in terms of how to kind of minimize that comparison with others on social media is think about, again, your values. What is it that you want from life? Yeah, what is it that you want from this season that you're in? And thinking about how can you pursue that? And also, I guess, just enjoy the moment that you're in. Yeah, and just be mindful and just be accepting of where you are in life.
I love that. Just refocus on your own values, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Rather than look at someone else's. I think it's great.
100%.
Very quickly, unless you wanted to jump in.
Of course.
How do you know, how can someone watching know when is the right time to go and see a psychologist?
Okay, so we would say when you have noticed that these symptoms aren't shifting. Yeah, so some of the symptoms that I've mentioned, that that sense of apathy. So feeling that you just have no hope. Yeah, feeling that you don't want to do things, even things that you really used to enjoy, things that used to kind of give you that kick. You no longer want to engage in that. Maybe you're withdrawing from others. Feelings of restlessness. If you've noticed issues with sleep, if you've noticed issues with your appetite, maybe changes to weight. If you've noticed those things and they have been going on for a few weeks, yeah, and they're impacting other areas of your life. So maybe they're impacting your relationships with your friends, with your partner, with your family. If they are actually stopping you from applying to jobs, if they're impacting your physical health, that's when I would say it's really important to seek help. Yeah, utilize the support around you. So that could be your family, your friends, but also professional help as well, because I guess when you seek therapy, you have an objective person walking the journey with you. So they're not invested in that loving way that your family might be. So that might add additional pressure, like I mentioned earlier. But they're able to help you think, okay, what's going on, and how can we navigate this, and what strategies and what tools do you already have within you that we can strengthen, and what things can we bring to help you get through this.
Amazing. Thank you so much for those valuable insights.
Thank you.
That was Dr. Bissi Lanyon from Sage Clinic. If people want to get in touch with Sage or with you directly, how can they do that?
Absolutely. So you can find us at www.sage-clinics.com. So we're based in downtown Dubai near Souk Al Baha.
Dr. Bissi, thank you so much. Thank you, Farah. That brings us to the end of our show. We'll be back with you tomorrow morning, same time, same place. Bye-bye.